right, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Seven Figures or Bust podcast, episode 105, the number one podcast in the world for growing your insurance business. Christian Brindle, Glenn Shelton, and it's Monday morning. Good morning, sir. Good morning. Good morning.
And it's Monday morning. How was your weekend?
My weekend was good. I had a 6-year-old's birthday party, and tried to go out and do something with the family Sunday, but the rain would not stop. So we ended up just driving around waiting for it to stop. Never stopped. So I didn't end up doing too much. Went to a trampoline park. There was that. I don't understand why in kids' trampoline parks, why they have it set to like 30 degrees. Never quite understood that. You could see my breath in this place. And I go up to the counter and I'm like, why do you want to build a snowman in here? I said that to the receptionist, and her response was, she's like, sorry, I don't control the thermostat.
Like, we gotta keep the kids awake. If it's too warm in here, they'll just fall asleep on the trampoline. You know that.
At one point, I look over and I see a kid on the ground lying down because his leg was about to be amputated from frostbite.
They're starting a fire in the corner. They're like, whatever we have to do to stay warm.
Right. Like most of the kids were not bouncing. They were trying to find ways to survive. And that was the game. Some kids won the game. Some kids lost. How was your weekend?
Good. I also celebrated a child's birthday. My kid turned 13, which I still am in like denial about.
Yeah. You officially have a teenager. How does it feel?
It feels weird. It's one of those things where like over time you don't really feel it or see it coming, and then all of a sudden you hit that milestone, and it's almost an arbitrary milestone in a lot of ways, because what is now versus 3 weeks ago, what's the difference really, right? I mean, there really is no difference, but there is something about that actual milestone. And then we also watched a bunch of like videos of his childhood and growing up, and God, there are some videos of me where I'm just like, who is that? At one point I dyed my hair black. I don't even know why. I dyed my hair and beard.
How many
black.
things are gonna come out on this show? And I'm like, what? I'm like, how did I never know that?
I honestly am trying to remember what. I don't know if it's just because like I'd never dyed my hair or what, but I swear to you, I look Japanese. I don't know what it is, but I look. It's the weirdest thing. I'm like, I don't know who that is. Watching these videos back. Oh man.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a good weekend.
Well, tell your son that I will pay good money for that footage. If you're just let him know,
right,
that Uncle Christian will slip him a couple Benjamin Franklins, you can get me that footage.
I will tell him that. We also, I did see Thunderbolts yesterday. I actually thought it was really good.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I haven't seen it. So how was it? It was good?
It was really funny. Funny for a Marvel movie. Did you see Thor: Love and Thunder?
Yeah, I kind of hated it.
You did?
I liked all the Thor movies, by the way. That was the only one that I saw, and I was like, that was the last one, right? The one that came out the most recently.
That was the most recent one, yeah.
Yeah, I watched
Natalie Portman, she's like she Thor.
Yeah, I hated that. I thought that was terrible. I hated everything about that movie. I just kind of got through it, so I didn't have I never had to go back and watch it again. But so it's like that movie. So don't watch it. Is what you're saying.
Well, I just like most Marvel movies aren't like super funny to me. Like they're funny, but not like you're not like laughing the whole time. But I thought I thought this movie was pretty fun. Like I was laughing through most of the movie. Like it was good. It was good, but
Maybe I'll give it a shot. I promise to the audience on this Monday morning, we will keep the NBA talk to 3-4 minutes tops.
Oh boy, here we go.
I just have 3 things I want to point at. All right. So number 1, again, I've said this on the show. Jokic is so good, but his team kind of screwed him. They just didn't have enough depth. They don't have a good enough team. They got blown out in a game 7, but it's amazing they even got to a game 7. I feel like he kind of single-handedly got them to that game 7. You had a little bit of Murray appearances here and there, and then and then he goes. He's like a turtle. His head pops out, and then his head kind of pulls back in. Number 2, I found myself wondering, was Westbrook good in these playoffs? I couldn't really figure that out because I felt like there were so many horrible moments, but then there were some moments I felt like he was good. So I went back and looked at the stats. Interesting, right? So what would you guess? Okay, 14 games they played in the playoffs. What would you guess his points per game is and his field goal percentage in the playoffs?
I bet he averaged probably like 12 points a game.
Very close. About 11. A little bit over 11. Like 11.1.
I was gonna
field goal percentage.
12. I would guess probably 45%.
39.
Okay.
3-point percentage. Guesses?
30%.
31.
Wow. You don't need ESPN. Just ask me. I can tell you what's going on. Okay.
Yeah.
Keep going.
You're cheating, I can tell.
Suri, what? Tell me what Russell Westbrook did.
ChatGPT's up in the next browser.
What? Say it again. What was the question?
Free throw percentage, 70%. He averaged about 2 assists a game and 2 turnovers a game. So he had just as many turnovers per game as assists. So he was bad. He was just bad.
I mean, that's pretty average. He's not a starter. He didn't start the game. I mean, he had limited minutes, limited role. I'd say he was average at best. He had some horrific games.
League average shooting percentage is 42. League average 3-point percentage is 34 or 35. And then assist to turnover ratio, if you're turning it over so if you have 10 assists, you're going to have 10 turnovers with that same ratio.
I want to get you a poster of Russell Westbrook. You just hate this man.
No, I hate how much admiration he gets, and he's so bad, and he's always been bad. I went back and looked at his whole career in the playoffs, and he's never been good. Never. He's never shot better than 40% in the playoffs in any year. Like he's not a good player. He does some. Did you watch the
game yesterday? Did you watch the game yesterday?
I watched a little bit of it. I didn't watch it all.
I didn't watch the whole thing. I watched probably the first 3 quarters ish, and then we left. I did want to make a statement for Adam Silver though, is I do believe that there was an effort to hack Jokic as much as possible. He was getting absolutely mugged every single play, and they were maybe calling a third of the fouls on him. It was absurd, honestly. I really I don't know if you saw that or you felt that way. I mean, the first quarter, the Nuggets dominated them. And again, I'm not really a Nuggets fan at the end of the day. I really don't care, but I wanted it to be a close game. I hate blowouts, and a blowout game 7, it's like such a wasted opportunity. Give me a fourth quarter game 7, and instead Jokic is getting, and obviously like Aaron Gordon's being held together with duct tape. Michael Porter Jr. at one point in this series had so much tape on he had so much tape on his shoulder. I'm like, what's going on? I'm like, what's the goal here with all that? He had like another head's worth of tape on his shoulder. I'm just like, so yeah, it was a wasted opportunity for some really good NBA yesterday, I felt like. But
let me say one more thing on the Westbrook thing, and then I will drop it.
Okay.
He was the lowest on the whole Nuggets team in the playoffs in field goal percentage, 3-point percentage, and had the worst assist to turnover ratio. Every bench player, every starter, So, like, it's he'll have like a flashy dunk, right? He'll go like 1 for 9 in a game, and one of those is a fast break dunk, and then I'll see the highlight of that dunk forever on Instagram. Like, be like energy off the bench. Whoa! And I'm like,
Nuggets 6 man of the year.
they won't show the 8 air balls and throwing it out of bounds, and it's just disgusting the way he plays. Like, he's so out of control and he's so inefficient. Oh,
You
he's
have a
so
vendetta against this man. I honestly, I don't think he's ever been great. I really don't.
no,
I think he's
he's
very
overrated.
overhyped. Yeah, I think he's overrated for sure. I do
I
think
think
he
there's
is
some things
overrated.
that he's done well, right? He plays hard on offense. He doesn't play hard on defense. I hate when people say how he's like he plays so hard, but he doesn't play defense. So no, he doesn't. He rebounds well, but I don't really want my point guard rebounding. I want, like that.
Yeah,
I don't see
yeah.
the value in that. And he's a good dunker. He's like a good showman player kind of thing, but he's so flawed. Anyway, one more thing I wanted to mention about the NBA playoffs, and then I'm done talking about it. Is there a team that's left that you enjoy seeing win it all the most? Because any team that wins, any possibility that's remaining is a
It's
new
really
champion
it
that
is in
hasn't
a
been a
long
champion
time.
before.
In a long time.
So
The franchises too, not just some of these players that some
yeah,
of these newer players, but some of these franchises. You go back 20. I was looking at the stats. It was like 52 years since the Knicks have been in a NBA Finals, or they've been a champion, and then it was like the Pacers was like 49 years, and it's been like 29 years for the Timberwolves. Like all of these teams, franchises. So I'm excited by that. I am excited to see some new faces, some new teams. If I had to pick one that I would want to see, or I feel like deserves it the most, I love the Knicks. Mikal Bridges
that would
is
be fun to see.
Mikal Bridges. I love him. I know it's such like a no name to be like in love with a player, but I love the way he plays basketball. He's
He's a
just so
he's a
fun to watch.
he's a solid, good starter. Is what I would say. Like, he's not a star, but he's kind of like on the brink of that. He's like one tier below that, but he's a really good player. He's a really good
He
player.
does he does a lot of the dirty work, so he doesn't get like a lot of the admiration that like Jalen Brunson's gonna get when he's hitting step back threes, that type of thing. So I probably would pick the Knicks. I also do love, like, if we could get the Knicks and the T Wolves, if we could have that for the
Oh,
NBA final, that would
wow.
be great. That would be my choice. What about you?
I was thinking about this night. I had a really hard time because where I'm at this stage in my life of NBA fandom.
I could just see you agonizing like all night. Stormy's like, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" You're like, "I don't know who I want."
You know that meme? Guy lying in bed, he's probably thinking about a girl. And who do I want in the NBA finals?
100%.
I it would be kind of amazing to see Edwards in the finals at his age. I think he's only 23. Like, you don't see 23-year-old superstars go to the finals very often. It I think OKC's a better team, but I think if I could pick my ideal scenario, I think it'd be Knicks T-Wolves. That would be the most fun combination,
Sure.
I think, of whoever's left.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for these semis. I think it'll be interesting to see how these semis play out, and then the finals after that. Normally the summit's happening during the
Right.
finals, but
Typically, yeah. We always
yeah,
make bets that
I
I feel like
know. Well,
historically I've come out ahead on those
I felt so
wagers.
good to finally win this year, you
Yeah.
guys. I'm scared to even bet you again. I feel like I need to just stop right here.
Stop while you're ahead.
Another thing that came up this weekend that in the group, someone was asking about final expense leads from league heroes and working final expense and kind of this desire to diversify into final expense. And I promised this person I would talk a little bit about it on the pod this morning. So I know we've got a big topic here we need to get into in just a moment, but
we have time.
So do you remember when we did that poll in the group? This was a little while back. We did a poll in the 7-Figure Medicare Agent Facebook group, and we're like, hey, we're considering getting a lot more final expense content out there, you guys. Like, I'm trying to remember there was like 3 options. It was like, you want final expense content, you hate final expense, or you've never sold or know nothing about final expense. It was something like that. And it was like 2 out of 3 people that voted. There was quite a few people that voted on this poll. It was like a third said they hate it and they don't want to hear anything about final expense. Another third was like, I've never sold final expense. What is final expense? And then another third was like, yes, I need to know more about it. What's going on? I want to get more into it. Why do you think it is so many Medicare agents are like anti-FE? Because I do feel like there is a portion of agents that are like anti-life.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
I think a couple of things that come to mind is I think the life space in general is probably made up of some really slimy activity. Not exclusively, right? It's not like it's the entire space, but I think there is a lot of slimy activity, and I think there's a lot more hard selling that goes on. For a lot of Medicare agents, they will probably experience, if they do it long enough, to where they'll sell a client on a Medicare policy. Let's say they don't do life, or they don't actively try to cross sell for life, or whatever the case might be, and they'll have a life agent come in and try to really hard sell one of their clients. And it's almost like they get a little protective, like a shepherd, like a mother hen. And so I think there's a little bit of that. I think I've talked to a lot of Medicare agents over the years that have a hard time seeing the value of like a final expense product. And this is a situation that I've struggled with in my career as well. I think I'm kind of gotten over it a little bit now, but like for a long time in my career, I would look at a final expense product and I would just have a really hard time justifying the premium versus the benefit. And I would almost feel like selling it, I was doing a disservice to the client. I think there's a lot of Medicare agents that look at it that way, like, because how often,
like a lack of belief in the actual product line, like this product line, like people out there. I don't know. I guess I'm biased for sure because obviously I've seen where a final expense policy can make a difference. Like I've seen it. Like I've really seen it out in the field. I've talked to the people who are so grateful that their mom or dad or their grandma and grandpa, they had that policy. They had that $20,000, $25,000, $30,000 policy, whatever it is. I get it where it's like, it doesn't seem like it would make a difference, or it seems like, you're charging them a bunch of money for something, they never get to use it, right? It's not for them, so that's a different dynamic than helping someone with their Medicare policy, because they get to use it. It's for them. They get to go to the doctor. They pull out their card. So it is kind of this weird dichotomy, but I wanted to preface the reason I wanted to kind of get into this a little bit deeper, because the question originally was about the Lead Heroes final expense leads. Someone asked, hey, what's been the feedback? There wasn't that many people commenting. I mentioned that, majority of what we're doing at Lead Heroes is Medicare health focus. We still do a lot on the final expense side. But again, I feel like Lead Heroes business is similar to the group in the sense that it's like probably 2 out of 3 is Medicare focused, or dental, vision, hearing, health focused. And then like maybe 1 out of 3 or even less, depending on the time of year, is final expense. And I wanted to get to kind of the bottom of this whole, like, what separates someone who is successful working these final expense leads. Because if you come into it as a Medicare agent and you're completely green. And I don't know for sure, this person that asked, I don't know for sure what their background with final expense is, but if you come into final expense with no final expense experience and you're coming into it with the same ideas and the same, sales strategies and techniques that you do with Medicare, it's probably going to be a little incongruent. It's probably not going to be the same type of, you know, fluid conversation that you're used to having with Medicare, where you can walk in, sit down, and say, "Hey, Mrs. Jones, let's talk about your Medicare policy," right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so we've been really working hard on integrating final expense into the agency this year
Yeah,
and
yeah,
making it a big part of what we do. And part of that has been involved in me coming up with scripting, me coming up with good ways for us to cross sell to our existing clients, lead types, all of that stuff. And I've sold final expense in my career. It's kind of been a situation when I've tripped into it. I've never really been super strategic about trying to sell a final expense policy. And I can speak as somebody that I feel like my expertise is selling Medicare. I'd put my what I know up against anybody. I feel really confident about that. But it is very different. It's really different if you know Medicare, right? And it is a very different type of sale. And so I think for the average Medicare agent, I can see that being a really difficult struggle if they don't have any kind of direction on like, how is this different? What do
right.
you say opposed to Medicare? What do you need to focus on? That type of thing. Um, so I think I think that's a huge part of it for sure. I think that's a big
It's
obstacle for a lot of Medicare agents.
Yeah, it's something about, like, you can be really blunt and direct with Medicare, and it almost works better in that way. And then with life, I feel like there's kind of a song and dance to it where you don't you don't want to sit down, or you don't want to pick up the phone and the first thing you're saying to a prospect, whether you're at the door or you're on the phone, you don't want to be like, "Hey, Mrs. Jones, I'm here to talk to you about that life insurance policy. I just wanted to get you a quote really fast." Like, you could almost take that same approach with Medicare, and it would probably work, right? Like, you could
Mm.
literally be like, "Hey, I'm here to talk to you about your Medicare policy. I just want to make sure you're not overpaying. Let's get a quote really fast." So when I see that same approach, a lot of you will try to take, where you'll try to be super blunt and direct, and then you're getting a lot of doors slammed on your face, you're getting a lot of phones hanging, and then you're like, "Oh, the leads suck," or, "Oh, final expense sucks," right? Because that's part of this
Yeah.
too, like we were just talking about, is a lot of you don't believe in the product, or you think nobody wants this, nobody needs this. But I think you have to get to the broader conversation. The broader point of this is, and Christian and I have been talking a lot about this at ESI, and how the scripting should work, and what can make a successful sales conversation, and what's ultimately going to be fruitless. But getting to the point, and as an agent, my go-to was always getting them to say, "Do you have anything?" I didn't want to necessarily call it life insurance, especially not up front, but I wanted to get to the point where I said, "In the event of an untimely passing, or if you were to die, do you have anything that would cover your funeral or pay out to your family?" And that was the point. I wanted to get to that conversation. I
So
didn't
at
want to get to, "Let's talk about life insurance. I want to quote you." I want to quote you.
so at what point in that conversation do you think it's appropriate to say the forbidden word of life insurance? Because
The forbidden word.
I've seen that too, right? Like, you
Yeah.
know, I've been beta testing some conversations this year, with existing clients, with leads, things like that. And I would test out certain things just because I feel like I need some of that experience myself to be able to teach it and know what happens in certain situations. So I would, in some situations, bring up the word life insurance early, and then other situations I would try to dance around what it really is by saying, burial policy, or something to cover your final expenses, or just using different
Right.
terminology.
Yep.
um, and typically where I would find when you're doing that song and dance, at least for me, it doesn't take super long for someone to be like, do you mean life insurance? Like they're eventually
Right.
like, they're pinning you again into the corner a little bit. It's like,
Sure.
what are you talking about kind of thing. So when is it appropriate to bring that up, you feel like, in that conversation?
So that line, and again, whether you're selling over the phone or you're trying to set an appointment or you're presenting at the table, that line, that, and I would use that almost every single time, in the event of a disability or death or an untimely passing, Mrs. Jones, do you have anything that would pay out? A lot of times I would even incorporate life insurance into this line sometimes. And I would say, Mrs. Jones, do you have anything that would pay out to your family or your loved ones like life insurance?
Mm.
So I would position it where it's like, do you have anything like this? Because the other thing you're trying to uncover too is like, if someone genuinely doesn't have a need, which you can come across these people, right? They're set up where they have plenty of assets. There were many houses I got laughed out of where it was a final expense lead, and I'm walking in and they have millions of dollars. It just wasn't a fit for them. So you're really trying. I want to uncover the need. And if there is a need, then I can hammer it home and be like, hey, this is why you must have responded, because you do need this, and this is who's going to benefit from this if you were to get a policy. But it's almost immediate. To answer your question, though, it's almost immediately after that question that I'm getting into like the mechanics of what's going on. But before, I don't want to talk about what this is until I know if there's a need or not. If
Mm.
there's no need, there's no point of proceeding any further. There's just, what's the point? Like if there's genuinely no, I've tried to sell policies to people who don't have needs, and it doesn't go anywhere. You're either going to have a hell of a time trying to close them, because they're just going to be like, well, I don't really have anybody that would be my beneficiary of this policy, or they genuinely just didn't need that policy, and it just doesn't fit. So that works. Okay, no, I don't have anything. Well, that's great. This final expense policy, or this burial benefits that I'm talking to you about right now, Mrs. Jones, this is a type of life insurance that is designated to pay out for your funeral costs. It's going to cover 100% of your funeral costs. It can even pay off other things like, debts. It goes to your family member. It's 100% tax-free benefit, so they don't have to pay out any taxes. And so essentially I'm explaining that this is a type of life insurance after I figure out if there's a need or not. But leading with it, that's the thing, is leading with it. And I think the main failure point for Medicare agents or health agents that are trying to sell life and they're just like hitting a wall is, I think they're taking this blunt approach that works with Medicare, and they're trying to put life insurance, just basically interchange it, and then they're just not, I don't think they get anywhere with it. That's historically what I feel like has happened.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's pretty spot on. Yeah, I feel like we're kind of in the midst of like cracking the code, right? With it to where, doing it in a way to where it makes sense. We're doing a lot of volume with it within the Medicare business being our primary focus. So yeah, I'm spending a lot of time on it on a consistent basis right now, trying to really work out these systems. And I can say it for me as like a Medicare agent, the areas I've always struggled in is probably exactly what you just said, trying to take an approach I would use for Medicare and using it for final expense or life insurance. And it is different. It's a different game.
Yeah.
It's not as much of a product that I think you can argue is an absolute, you have to have it on a day-to-day basis, otherwise your life can be miserable.
Yep.
You don't get penalized for not having it, right? Like there's
That's what
so
I was
much.
gonna say. That's a big one, right? That one
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
there's so
Yeah.
many little things with Medicare. And I think in addition to that, like one thing I've had to overcome, and maybe we can talk about this a little bit. I don't want to get away from the main topic,
Yeah.
but I think this is a good topic of conversation.
This episode of the Seven Figures or Bust podcast is brought to you by the Seven Figure University. SevenFigureUniversity.com is a culmination of Christian Brindle's and mine's educational videos that we have developed over the past 2 decades of combined experience in the senior insurance space. There's more than 250 videos, hundreds of hours of content that can help you become a top producer or a top producing agency in the senior insurance space. We're talking about videos of how to work with specific carriers, how to do different types of marketing, such as seminars or Facebook advertising, how to generate content in the niche to help grow your business, how to grow an agency, all sorts of things. There's so much value in this. It's unbelievable. Christian, what do agents need to know about Seven Figure University?
Seven Figure University can best be thought of as an agency blueprint in a box that's put together for you that brings you step by step in every facet of building a successful seven-figure insurance agency and lays it out all in front of you so you can follow along. Whether you guys need help with marketing, whether you guys need help with branding, whether you guys need help with hiring, training, standard operating procedures, systems and processes, automation, you name it, it's covered in this course. Not only that, you get access to my weekly training calls every Thursday that go from January through the end of September on a week-to-week basis. And you can attend those live and ask questions live. And then, of course, the recordings are put into the university afterward if you can't attend it and make the live training. So there's just so much value. It's the gift that keeps on giving, and it's a great investment into your business to kind of keep you up to date on what's going on, but also kind of point you in the right direction in various things that you're struggling with.
Some of the best training you'll be able to find, you guys, in one spot for one price. Go to sevenfigureuniversity.com and learn more.
Let's get back to the show. Like that feeling as an agent, and I can kind of share some of my thoughts, but I'd love to get yours too, like that this is a ripoff for the client. I think there's a lot of agents that think that and kind of look at it that way. And it's a little tough to really not feel that way at times. Like, let's say you're on a call with somebody, let's say you're on a call with someone that's 70, and you're quoting them $10,000 of coverage, and the premium, if they pay it for 8 or 9 years, they'll pay more than the death benefit. You know, like
Right.
Clients sometimes will do the math on that in their heads, and they're like, why would I do this? You know what I mean? And then you're like, I don't know. You know, like you're like, I wouldn't do it. Well, I don't know why you'd do it. So my thoughts on that is like the biggest argument for it is that you don't know what's going to happen to you over the course of 8 or 9 years, right? Like it's kind of to cover the unexpected. It's kind of like car insurance or something like that. You're not planning on using it, but you want to have it, kind of thing. That's probably the argument for it. And the other argument for it is, like a lot of things, you know, we've talked about dental in this capacity a lot on this show. If you don't at least offer it to them, a lot of clients will go and get it without you.
True.
No matter whether you like it as a product or not.
True.
And that's been a big eye opener for me. But anyway, what are your thoughts on that? And is there anything that I missed there, you think?
So I do think to become an elite salesperson, you have to believe in what you're selling. Like you could be the best salesperson in the world, but if you genuinely don't believe in your product or company or whatever it is you're selling or representing. And I know historically, because I've sold probably a dozen different things over the years, there's times when I haven't been as invested. Like when I sold pest control, as an example, like, I just wasn't as invested in it. Versus, selling something that I truly believe in. So like you do have to, I think if you really want to be successful, especially with final expense, especially with life insurance, you have to really believe in it. And I think to really get to that, I think when you finally have those conversations with people where you talk to someone and you see how much of a benefit a policy like this can be, I think that can really help get you to the next level of belief. In regards to like the financial side of this, where someone can do the math in their head and they're like, why would I buy this? This doesn't make any sense. The other thing I realized is that the average prospect in the final expense market, they're not going to save money. They didn't save. That's why they're talking to you about final expenses, because they didn't save. They don't have assets. They don't, a senior that's really set up well for retirement and they have lots of assets, they don't need final expense. If they are a low income senior and they have almost no assets and they genuinely need that final expense policy, they're not going to be the type of person that says, I don't need this. I'm going to set aside $200 a month into a savings account and get interest. And I'm going to live for 15 or 20 years anyways. And I'm going to come out way ahead. That's not going to happen. And I have gotten into some conversations that are a little dicey with people when that comes up, where I'm like,
you're not going to do this.
You didn't save before, right?
Yeah,
I've said that. I've just been blunt with people. You didn't save before,
and I feel
so
like
you're telling me you're gonna start saving now? Like, come on.
I feel like at times too, like some of the best people I've ever known that sell final expense, they're willing to get uncomfortable with the client sometimes.
Oh yeah.
And I don't feel I don't feel like there's as much of that with Medicare, right? Like I think that's kind of more of the sales process, is you have to you have to put them in the ground. And I think that's hard for a lot of people to do.
Yes. Yeah. That's a great phrase, right? You do. You have to dig their grave and bury them in the appointment. You really do. And it can be very uncomfortable for a variety of reasons. It can be very uncomfortable. And there's a question here on the stream that I'll answer here too. Are the lead heroes final expense leads just like the Medicare leads though? Did someone fill out a form? They're wanting more information. Yeah, they're essentially, that's the thing though. That's the crazy part is that like the lead itself is essentially the same as the Medicare lead. It is someone who wants more information, right? Just like with turning 65, it's somebody that wants more information. They want help from an agent. It's essentially at the core of it the same exact thing, but because it's such a different type of policy, and that's why I wanted to have this conversation with Christian this morning really fast on the pod, is because it's so different. It's not going to have, you could be one of the most successful lead heroes Medicare agents ever. You could buy those leads and crush it and get a batch of final expense leads and strike out, because it's not the same applicable strategies and processes that'll make you successful as an FE agent. I feel like this could have been a whole episode in and of it. So just compare and contrasting these two, I think is actually really interesting. I think there's a lot.
I kind of hate the idea of stopping, but I think we have to.
I know. A part of me wants to just keep going on this, and maybe we punt the main topic.
I mean, we could. Not great title wise and everything like that, but I don't know, maybe we could do that. I don't know if it makes sense to punt the main topic or if it makes sense to circle back on this another time. Don't know. Maybe we punt the main topic. I'm going to see how difficult it is.
When we upload, we can change the title, right?
Yeah, we have to individually go on the live stream platforms and change it that way, but maybe we can do that. Let's do that.
Let's do it. Let's put it, because I'm very invested into this. But before we go on, Christian, who is today's sponsor of episode 105? How could we forget?
Guys, Seven Figure University. People ask me all the time, what do I need to do to be successful? Well, the truth is, you need a myriad of things to happen, and you need to be doing a lot of things well in your business to become massively successful. Where can you learn all these things? Well, most of the time, it's not going to be in one place, with the exception of Seven Figure University. Seven Figure University is going to provide you step by step in every single area of your business, how you can grow and how you can be massively successful. Whether you need product knowledge and you're newer, whether you need help with presentation, sales skills, overcoming objections, calling leads, scripting, whether you need help with marketing, running your own ads, compliantly, with the new one-to-one consent, not one-to-one consent, with the new special ads category situation
Yes.
in Facebook world, whether it be running your own seminars, whether it be branding, whether it be business structure, whether it be hiring, anything that you're possibly going to need is going to be included in Seven Figure University. It's over 200 videos. It's a business in a box, as Glenn likes to call it.
Yes.
And it's over 85% off, more than $4,000 discounted for lifetime access. It's typically $5,000 for lifetime access. We do not offer a monthly subscription at this time. Until the 30th of May, you can get it for $695.95 one time for life. You also get access to my weekly training calls on Thursday. It's the investment that keeps on giving. There's people that have bought it years ago that still use it every single week, and they attend the trainings every single week, and they're still getting value years later without any additional investment they've put in. So for this price, we're practically giving it away. Make sure that you take advantage of this while you can. Seven Figure University. All right. So
Boom.
so what do you feel like is going to be, let's say there's an agent that's listening, they're proficient in Medicare.
Yeah.
What do you feel like is the best way for them to pivot into not selling Medicare, but selling final expense in addition to Medicare in a large clip, right? Like, what do they really need to do if they're listening to get good at selling final expense, at becoming part of their process, right? Because there's some compliance stuff too, right? It's not exactly something like a hospital indemnity or a dental you can sell on the same appointment. Almost always you can't.
Right.
You have to do them on the different appointments, everything like that. So what does someone have to do if someone came to you and asked you that question?
It's definitely a repetition game for sure. Something you mentioned earlier that is just on the money is people are going to be buying these policies whether you sell them or not. And what I can tell you from the marketing side of, because we've done so much final expense marketing, we've also done a lot of combo marketing. We had this campaign we ran for a really long time where it was a bed sub campaign, but then we asked about life insurance at the end. It was a custom campaign that someone designed. And I thought the data behind it was really interesting because what we found is, about 5% of the leads were very interested in life insurance. So, that was roughly like what the on the sales side was. Like actual listening to the leads and who was qualifying, saying that yes, they wanted help with Medicare and they wanted to talk about life insurance. It was even higher than that. But as far as like presentations and submitting apps goes, it was about 1 out of 20. So let's just take that number as part of the math equation here of the theory of selling more life insurance, selling more final expense. If you told 20 of your Medicare clients that you also sell final expense, you'll probably run into some people who are just like, oh, I was just going to call so-and-so about that. Can you help me with it? You'll just get absolute layups where it's just, so-and-so, I was just at a funeral last week. I'd really like to get a policy. Those so like just mentioning it, whether you could email blast your clients, or maybe you have a newsletter, or maybe it's just like on your business card, however you get it out there to your clients that you also handle it, you'll start selling a fair clip of life insurance annually just by mentioning it. I mean, that's a great place, I think, to start if you're really like lost, you're not sure how to even begin with this one.
So you're saying basically by just mentioning it, no matter how, you'll trip into a couple people that will have a need that will reach out to you, basically.
Yeah. Spend 20 seconds, mentioning it. Obviously, like you said, from a compliance standpoint, you can't always bundle it right into the conversation right there and then, but just by making it known that you do this with all of your existing clients, or with all of your new clients or your referrals, like as you're going, you just, oh, hey, by the way, I also handle final expense, life insurance, funeral benefits, however you phrase it. You will fall into a fair amount. Like let's just say you write 200 apps a year. You're talking about selling probably 15 to 20 final expense apps. No marketing, no leads, just mentioning it. That'd be my guess. You froze. Are you
Did I
back?
freeze?
Hello. You did. At first I
I think
thought
I'm
you may
back.
have been staring off. I thought you might be staring off into the abyss for a second. I wasn't sure.
Daydreaming.
Yeah. Daydreaming about those final expense prospects.
Who would I want to see in the NBA finals? um,
There's a question here on the stream.
Yeah.
From Becky. So she says, just starting out, I've considered starting with FE to get in a better financial place since it's quicker pay, and then I could go full time faster. So essentially, because and this is tough, and I think we've talked about it a little bit before on the show. That is kind of this catch-22 between Medicare and final expense. You can get paid more upfront with final expense. So if you don't have like a lot of savings, or if you're trying to get your footing to get started, it can in some ways be easier or quicker to start in final expense. The tough part is, like, in theory, that sounds easy, right? Is like, I'm going to go sell final expense for 6 months and then I'm going to just jump right into Medicare. And I just think that your ability to balance all that, I think it's probably more difficult than it sounds.
I think
that all work.
I think there's pros and cons to both sides that we've talked about a lot on the show. For me, I think the pros of final expense are what you guys are saying. There's more advanced commissions, et cetera. The negative side of it is, and we've talked about this on the show too, is one of the most crippling things that can happen to you as a new agent is chargeback debt. And you have a lot more chargeback debt when it comes to final expense than you do Medicare, just statistically, right? The average, and I don't exactly know what the numbers are, but if I had to guess, I'd say the average Medicare agent has a 90% retention rate. The average final expense agent probably has 75 to 80% retention rate, right? And not only that, final expense insurance companies are a lot more snippy about getting their money back than Medicare carriers. Not to say Medicare carriers don't get that way as well, but my experience has been they're more lenient on giving you some time to pay it back. Whereas like final expense companies, like you might have like 3 weeks, give it back,
Yep.
and it can become a big problem for you. And so, if it was me, I'm biased because I'm a Medicare guy. I started with Medicare. I had a lot of success with Medicare. I feel like Medicare is a better foundation, I guess, to build your future on to start out, because what you're doing in the first couple of years as an agent is you're building a foundation, right? Where your career can go is going to be based on how strong that foundation is. It's like building a house, right? I heard a story recently that in a part in Utah, there were these houses in the last 5 years that were built on these like ledges, like high up on like mountain tops kind of thing. And the foundation was really bad. And there were some like corners that were cut by the builders that they're not supposed to cut, right, to like ensure that foundation is safe to build on.
Boy.
And these houses ended up falling down the mountains, and the builder got sued and had to like refund everything that all these homeowners had bought. So I think about it often like a foundation of a house, right? If you don't have a good foundation for the house is not going to be able to be stable. And same goes for your business. So not saying final expense can't develop into a good foundation, but I feel like with Medicare, it's like, renewals end up to building your foundation that you just don't have with final expense. That's my opinion. I don't know if you have I don't know if you have any
No,
additional
I
thought.
don't think I think it's for the average agent. I think what I did was, going from life to health is a lot harder than health to life. So I think you're absolutely right. I think if you're trying to build a foundation, you're trying to figure out where to start. I do think Medicare is the easier and better place to start, especially from a longevity standpoint. I would definitely recommend starting with Medicare. You can get final expense mixed in there, and you can even utilize maybe more final expense in that first year to try to, again, from an income standpoint. Here's the other part of this, though, that I was thinking about as we're having this conversation is like, how many agents do you know are jumping their primary marketing? They're jumping from like one product line to another. Like, I don't know too many agents who are successful like that. I know a lot of agents who have had a ton of success cross-selling,
Yeah.
but I don't know a lot of agents who are like, I market Medicare for 4 months, and then I market final expense for 4 months, and then I market dental vision hearing for 4 months, and then I market Medicare for 4 months. There's probably some examples out there of successful folks who do that, but I can't even think of any off the top of my head who
I
jump from primary product to primary product.
I think it's the exception, not the rule, right? For
Yeah.
people that do have success with that. Like I've known guys, and I know we both have, that started with FE, they do FE for a while, they get really good at it, and then they transition into Medicare, right? I've known guys like that. There's a lot of
Yes.
examples that come to mind,
Yes.
right? Like
Yes.
Matt Timmons, a guy that I think of,
Yeah.
top of mind.
Yeah.
So there's examples of that, but
For sure.
I don't think I don't think like the vast majority of agents will have success with that. Um, my opinion would be I think the best thing you can do is pick like what is going to be your primary product long term, right? Like ask yourself that. No matter what your plan is jumping back and forth, what is your primary product long term? Like what's going to be your foundation
Yeah.
built on? And then start there and then build around it once you've got some foundation built and you've got some experience and you know what you're doing in that primary product, right? So like for me, what my message to Medicare agents has always been, and I've been super consistent about this, Medicare is a great foundational product. Start with Medicare, do it for a year, maybe 12 months, 24 months, and then determine, okay, what do I want to add to this? And that could be final expense. That could be ACA. That could be both, right? Like ideally, so for us, right? Like I look at the pillars of our company, at least for the foreseeable future, they're going to be Medicare, final expense, ACA. And I don't want to really go outside of that too much. I mean, it's not to say we'll never do anything like annuities, things like that, but like we've got the Medicare stuff down. We're very good at ACA. Now we're trying to get the final expense down a little bit more. Not to say we haven't done it because we have, but like we're trying to get it down in a real way to where it's like a pillar of our business. So that's my advice. I think starting, like people always say, yeah, you got to cross sell. Yes, you do. But I think starting off trying to do it all, I've seen a lot of careers die trying to do that
Yeah.
because it's a
Yeah.
lot. Um,
Yeah.
so I think like picking your foundational product is what I'd call it line, and then going all in with that, not getting distracted, doing that for 12 to 24 months. And then, adding some of these other product lines later, like final expense, like ACA, that kind of thing. I think that's where the vast majority of agents will find success.
Yeah.
And I think it's a winning formula.
Yeah. I think I'm just reading some more of the comments here we've been getting, but yeah, it's tough. You really do want to be proficient with a line of insurance, like, especially if you're new and starting out. Like trying to do it all at the same time, getting started. Again, there's probably some exceptions that exist out there of people who've figured out multiple lines of insurance, all at once. But the reality, in my opinion, is that you want to probably spend 6, 9, 12 months exclusively selling really one line of insurance. Medicare Advantage and Medicare Supplement. You could probably do both of those over the course of 6 to 12 months because they are so interlinked. But, trying to do something like Medicare Final Expense, and then you're like trying to mix in ancillary products and you're trying to sell all this. And I've seen this happen where agents just get so burned out, or they really don't figure out any of them because they're constantly pivoting between all these different products. I think you really do need to pick one, build your foundation, and then you can start to incorporate more. You also have, once you start to have this book of business, these clients, now you can come back to them. They've already bought from you. And if you do decide to offer different products and in different lines of insurance, you can come back to them and say, hey, by the way, Mrs. Jones, I also do this, I also do that. And it becomes that much easier to continue to grow. So
yeah,
you don't have to pigeonhole yourself, but you have to be strategic about it.
Yeah, agreed. We're getting to close to the top of the hour. Maybe we move into final thoughts. Maybe it's time. For me, guys, my final thoughts on this episode that turned into final expense at, marketing, how it differs from Medicare, sales, all of those things. I think, to kind of reiterate something that we've talked about on the show, make sure that you do go into it understanding there's a lot of key differences on the product types and adjust your process to that. I think Glenn did a great job sharing a lot of really good tips and tricks in terms of like identifying where the differences might lie and how it differs from Medicare sales. But I do think it's a really, really good 1-2 punch. They go together super well. They always have, and I think we're just seeing more and more people when it comes to Medicare and final expense together. You're just seeing less and less people do it together proficiently. You're just not seeing a lot of it. And I think it's a really, really good way to diversify your business. And that's what we're trying to do right now. So those would be my final thoughts. One more question I just want to answer. So I see something. Medicare Advantage is getting on the stream. Medicare Advantage is getting a bunch of bad press in the YouTube space. That's been going on for 15 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's always, I mean, everybody that makes YouTube videos except for me will shit on Medicare Advantage. It just is what it is, because it gets clicks. It's an easy target. It gets clicks.
Or if they're trying to sell SUP, that's an easy way for someone to try to push someone into SUP, especially if they've been influenced by Medicare Advantage.
Yeah, I mean,
that's the devil's product. You don't want that.
Y'all don't want that.
You don't want that, Mrs. Jones.
I'm just gonna start doing a really Southern accent on all my videos going forward. Whoopin' tarnation! You got talked into a Medicare Advantage plan. But no, Glenn hit it right on the head, right? Like people
Could you imagine?
People on YouTube are a lot of times selling nationwide, and it's way easier to sell nationwide a MedSup than it is an MA because MedSup's the same everywhere. The product's the same everywhere. You don't have to deal with networks and plan benefits and, all of everything that comes with Medicare Advantage. So the easiest way to sell MedSup, especially when it's a product line that has a lot less market share, it's kind of moving in that direction of Medicare Advantage is going to swallow up its market share. We talked about that a lot on the show. The best way to sell a product like MedSup is to demonize the competition, and that's what they're doing. It's not because they have some holier than thou feeling. I'm going to save everyone from Medicare Advantage. No, it's been duplicated, and so it's always been that way on insurance and Medicare YouTubers. Medicare Advantage is the devil. Medicare Supplement is the gospel. Doesn't matter what you pay for the MedSup, just pay it and shut up and don't buy Medicare Advantage. That's kind of the message.
Yeah. Well said. My final thoughts today, you guys, on this pivoted to final expense conversation and kind of the comparison between Medicare and final expense. If you are a brand new agent or you're just brand new to final expense and you're wanting to have success selling final expense, I'm going to make my final thoughts here. I'm going to really boil this down, make it really easy for you guys. You just need 2 or 3 carriers that sell final expense. If you wanted to make it really simple, again, one guaranteed issue carrier and one other carrier that specializes in final expense. Again, you might find a company that sells final expense and it's kind of like an arbitrary line of insurance for them. It's just like an extra thing that they do. You really want a company that specializes in final expense that can do things like, and we had a great training on American Amicable that you can find on the YouTube channel. That's an example of a company that specializes in final expense, does a lot of business in that space. That's what you need to look for is someone like that. So you get 2 or 3 carriers. And then if you're new to it, or you are a brand new agent, you just need to talk to 20, 30, 40 people a week. If you have 20 to 30 to 40 conversations a week talking to people about final expense, these conversations could be happening over the phone, they could be happening in person, you could be networking, you could be getting referrals, like whatever it is. But if you're just having that many conversations and you're just explaining what you do and how it works, you don't have to be the best salesperson in the world. That level of activity will yield a lot of sales. Ultimately, that's where I ended up as an agent, as a final expense agent myself, is I just wanted to maximize my volume of conversations that I was having every week. If I could have 30 or 40 appointments a week, I knew that the sales would come from somewhere in there. I didn't even worry about anything else at that point because the volume was there, and I always won with volume. So it is that easy. And then, again, the last kind of warning that I'll heed the warning that Christian and I gave, I think, in this episode is, don't try to do it all at once. If you are brand new and you're getting into Medicare and you're also wanting to get into final expense, I would say pick a lane to get started.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you have success in that lane, then you can look at cross-selling, or if you wanted to spend some money on marketing a different line of insurance and then start to cross-sell the other way, or mix and match, or whatever it is, or do it. You can absolutely do it. You can have a lot of success doing it. I recommend doing it, but pick a lane to get started, have success with that line, and then build on that. Those are my final thoughts.
I think that's a good stopping point. Thank you all for watching all the way to the end. This is episode 105. Appreciate you guys watching all the way to the end and tolerating my horrific Southern accent. I'll work on it for future episodes, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Here's to your massive success. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Leave a 5-star review, whatever is available on whatever platform you might be listening on today. And we'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks, everybody.
Happy selling.